transparent in terms of the way that they've done business. I like the practice that's taken place in some parliaments where they produce legacy reports at the end of a parliament. The committee should look back and see, well, what have we actually achieved as a committee, and they should report to that. They should report to the people in terms of, we as your representatives, we have done this over the last 4 or 5 years, we've achieved this, these are the issues we've uncovered. This is a problem, a cost-cutting issue that keeps cropping up. And it's
Good morning, everyone. Pleasant day to everyone here, and I'd like to welcome everyone here today to the public inquiry into the National Quarries Company Limited, and to say that this is the Joint Select Committee on State Enterprises, and we're really happy to have you all here today. The purpose of this inquiry is to determine the effectiveness of NQCL in fulfilling its mandate of maintaining high-quality product and stability of supply to the local aggregate market. The role of this committee is to firstly examine the issues which arose based on National Quarries' written responses to the committee, and secondly, to aid National Quarries to help in improving its operations, resulting in a more efficient and effective organization. This meeting is being broadcast live on Parliament Channel 11, Parliament Radio 105.5 FM, and the Parliament's YouTube channel, ParlView. Viewers and listeners can participate by sending comments relating to today's inquiry with the National Quarries Company Limited via email to parl101@ttparliament.org, or on our Facebook page at facebook.com/ttparliament, or on Twitter @ttparliament. I would like now to welcome the officials present to invite themselves, and I will go in the order of the representative of National Quarries, representative of the Ministry of Energy, and the representatives of the TTITI. So beginning with National Quarries, could you please introduce yourselves and to the meeting? Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. My name is Ulrich Warner.
Oh yes, and please could you press the button?
Yeah. Good morning, Chairman, members of the Joint Select Committee. My name is Ulrich Warner, and I'm the Chairman of National Quarries Company Limited.
Morning, Chairman and members of the Joint Select Committee. My name is Mustaq Mohammed, and I am the CEO of National Quarries Company Limited.
Morning, Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Raymond Hackett. I am COO of National Quarries Company Limited.
Good morning, members of the committee, Chairman. My name is Glenn Stephen, and I'm the Chief Financial Officer of National Quarries Company Limited.
Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. I'm Selwyn Lashley, Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries.
Good morning, Chairman and members of the committee. I'm Penelope Bradshaw-Niles, Deputy Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries.
Good morning, Chairman and members of the committee. I am Monty Bihari, Director of Minerals.
Good morning, Chairman. My name is Victor Hart. I'm the Chairman of the Trinidad and Tobago Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative Steering Committee.
Good morning, Chairman and members. My name is Sherwin Long. I'm the head of the TTEITI Secretariat.
Thank you very much. I would like now to call on members of this committee to introduce themselves to the meeting, beginning with members on my left.
Good morning, everyone. I am Cherry Ann Kuchlo-Coburn, member of this committee.
Morning, Brigadier General Ansel Anthony, retired member.
Morning, Wade Mark, member.
Morning, Fazil Karim, member.
Good morning, Adrian Leons, member.
Good morning. My name is David Small. I'm the chairman of this committee. And I must say, it's particularly interesting for me to be here. And I must declare that I think I know virtually everyone, everyone in the table seated in front of me in some way, shape, or form for some time. So it will be an interesting meeting. So forgive me if the chairman tends to say, I know some of these guys here, and I've known some of them for probably 20, 30 years, in particular, a couple of you guys here. So it's a pleasure to have you here. I would now like to call on the entities represented to give a few brief opening remarks in the same order. Firstly, National Quarries, then the Ministry, and then TTITI. Brief opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And just to outline some of the issues that National Quarries Company had to address, the company we provided some bullet points. But in a general sense, what we'd like to state is that when the new board came into being on the 28th of November in 2015, we found an organization which was previously very successful, but at the time, the organization had been going through some challenges. And those challenges were challenges of governance, challenges of systems, challenges of leadership, and challenges of people. The board and the executive has been able to address some of these challenges in each of those areas: governance, systems, leadership, and also in people. And we're looking forward to this organization actually being successful at the end of this year. The way in which we have been able to address these issues affecting the organization is by paying attention to 4 simple areas from a strategic perspective. And those areas are safety and operational efficiency, people and people capability and competence, prudent financial management of the organization, and ensuring that the organization repays its debt and at the same time become a significant contributor to government revenues. We hope that we'll be able to address these issues as the committee asks its questions, and we'll be able to respond accordingly. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I now call on Mr. Lashley, Permanent Secretary, to give a few opening comments.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be brief. We're here, as usual, to provide support to the committee in terms of its questions and the responses. Today, of course, it's about National Quarries, which is one of the state enterprises that we have responsibility for. We certainly would, as usual, provide the support and the information as requested and required by the committee, and we look forward to a very informative session.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lashley. Given all that's happening in the sector, the committee appreciates your ability to attend and bring your team with you. I call now Mr. Hart to give a few brief opening remarks.
Yeah, Chairman, I think it's important to just link the Trinidad and Tobago Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative with the National Quarries Company Limited, so that everyone would understand how come we are associated. The TTEITI is a body set up by Cabinet comprised of the 3 stakeholder groups involved in the extractive industries, namely government, extractive companies, and civil society. When government established the TTEITI Steering Committee on the 8th of December of 2010, the numbers started with 15, 14 plus the chair, myself, and among the 14 were 6 government representatives, 4 from civil society, and 4 from extractive companies. Among the 6 government representatives were the Ministry of Energy, the Ministry of Finance, the Board of Inland Revenue, and 3 state-owned companies, Petrotrin, National Gas, and the National Quarry Company Limited. So that from day one, NQCL has been serving as a member of the steering committee that oversees EITI implementation in Trinidad and Tobago. And so it is that we have bonded over the almost 8 years of the existence of the steering committee and have become partners in implementing the EITI in our country.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hart, and thank you again to all the members who are here. Okay, I'm going to start my examination this morning, the committee's examination, by addressing a broad general question to the chairman of National Quarries. I know that the company is in the process of relooking at your strategic plan. So I want to get from you your sense or your view or the collective view of after the work is, given where the work is, of the major policy objectives to be pursued by National Quarries. Because I look at the original mandate, and it was very narrow. And I've looked at your draft document you provided to the committee. But I want to get a sense from you, that if you can share with the national community, what is the company's view today in terms of its major policy objectives?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. National Quarries Company Limited plays a significant role in terms of regulating what takes place in the whole business of the aggregates that are produced in Trinidad and Tobago. Absent National Quarries, then we would have a market that would be essentially open, and that can have all kinds of impact in terms of pricing and availability. In the strategic plan that the company is working on, and the board last week was able to approve the workshop documents to go forward to the final stage, we are concentrated on a couple of issues. Among those issues that we are concentrating on is ensuring that National Quarries continues to be a supplier of quality aggregate. We are also concentrating on the fact that National Quarries will be able to meet its markets, the market demand, and both our CEO and our COO will talk a bit about that. We're also concentrating on the reliability of the product of the company in terms of our ability to produce. And most of all, Mr. Chairman, there has been a discussion in the construction industry or wherever you may speak, which spoke to the quality of our product that is essentially from our limestone division at Verdant Vale, where there was a view that we didn't produce the quality that was expected in the market. I want to be able to state that we have had our discussions with all of the key players, and you'll see in our strategic plan that we are capable of providing all of the limestone material that is necessary for the country to continue with its road building program. And we have gone ahead where we have formed a public-private partnership with a crusher, and that is also within our strategic plan, so that from a strategic, holistic point of view, National Quarries is making a statement to the public. One, we are a serious business in which we are seeking to become profitable in this year based on all of the actions that we have taken. Two, we are a reliable supplier of aggregate and a reliable supply of the limestone rock that is used for road building. Thirdly, that we produce quality products, and we have had the discussions with the road builders, AECOM, Pure, NITCO, all of those people, right? Four, that while our plants are not where they're supposed to be, because of the quality of people we have at the executive level in the organization and the emphasis that we are paying on people capability and people competence, that we are going to deliver for the national community. And perhaps finally, the fact that National Quarries has made a 90-degree or 100-degree change within the area of our competence, which is the mining of aggregate to supply Trinidad and Tobago. That's where we are, sir, and that is what is represented in our strategic plan.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, thank you for that response. Let me just do a quick follow-up. I want to reference, in your opening comments, you alluded to the company when the board came in, you indicated that there were some challenges. So I want to get a sense from you, Mr. Chairman, some of the challenges initially when the board started up that you saw within the company, and then what specific actions that you identified this challenge, what specific actions have you taken to give proper redress to these challenges? Because at the end of the day, Mr. Chairman, this committee is about trying to help National Quarries go forward. We don't want to repeat the mistakes of the past, but in order to understand what happened in the past and to not repeat those mistakes, we need to be clear about what went wrong. So I want to help you, if you could help this committee with the couple of the major issues that you saw that needed urgent treatment, and what action did your new board and in league with your new management to try to see if you could put National Quarries back on a positive growth path.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. One of the issues about a company like National Quarries, it falls within what you would call the State Enterprise Monitoring Manual. It's a very important document that is one more of moral suasion than it is persuasive or legalistic. The board recognized that that powerful document needed to be paid attention to in terms of some of the things that it's required. Among the things that the State Enterprise Monitoring Manual outlined is the fact that there must be an audit committee of the board. And certainly in the case of National Quarries, one of the things that we discovered was that there was absolutely no one in the organization with any kind of financial training or experience. The board went ahead and put in place systems to ensure that we had the proper accounting processes in place. We have a CFO. And more than that, beyond those things, we formed the committees as, well, it's not mandated, it's more suasion in the case of the State Enterprise Monitoring Manual. So we got a proper and professional executive team. We started looking at our finances, which was not where it was supposed to be. In fact, only last month, this board was able to have 2 annual general meetings in which the financial statements for the year 2010 and 2011 were produced to the Corporation Sole and Ministry of Finance. We are not particularly happy about that, but that is what we found, and we have been working very hard to ensure that by the end of the year, National Quarries Company Limited would have had all of its financial statements up to date. Beyond that, Mr. Chairman, we had issues in terms of our plant and the production level within the organization. And so our CEO and our Chief Operating Officer, they have been able to address these issues in terms of planned maintenance, in terms of the reliability of the plant so that we can produce. And that took care of the issue of production. But beyond that, we started looking at the quality of staff that we had. You know, who do we need to train to bring them to where we are? What skills do we need? And more than that, sir, we had a look at what was it costing us in terms of our production to be able to treat with where we are financially and how successful we are. And so if you would give me an opportunity to just, go over to my CEO who would just talk a little bit in terms of some of the issues from a production perspective that we have been able to do, if you don't mind.
Please, proceed.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, good morning.
Good morning.
Starting as CEO at the company, what we started to do is try to model the business, understand commercially where we were heading directionally, and what we'd have to do operationally to be able to close that gap. That led us down a path of taking a holistic look at the business and really understanding the cost of production. We've spent the last month and a half just building what that model would look like. And one of our findings was we were selling at a lower cost than it was costing us to produce the material we were mining. We've done the work around that, and we've taken several steps. One is we've actually set some targets for what our direct cost of production should be, and we think that we could actually hit those targets. We've looked at our machinery, and though we do not have the capital to invest in a full upgrade, we've started to make incremental improvements in the way we manage and operate that equipment to be able to meet our production quotas. And thirdly, we have begun the implementation of a new maintenance regime for our equipment to be able to make them more reliable in the long run. That, together with engaging our staff, we've done a lot of work in terms of bringing the staff on board as to what is the new requirement of the business, as well as pointing in the areas where we can make improvements to the way we operate to improve operational efficiencies. That's where we are today, and we are certainly confident that the actions we are taking will move the business forward in, I would say, a profitable direction.
Thank you very much. That's my introductory, because I had these high-level questions. I have several questions on the course of your operations that I'm going to deal with, but right now I'm going to give the floor to Member Kitchler-Coburn. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I noted you mentioned the issue of staffing. But going through the documents, I noted that the 2012-2016 strategic plan, the objectives were not achieved due in part to resource constraints. That's one. And even in the report concerning the 2018 to 2020 3-year plan, I am noting that one of the major issues identified is the absence of a qualified and suitable staff affecting production. Now, I know that National Quarries, they would have dealt with the executive level. But we all know that the executive level, while that is critical, is the managerial and rank and file that really operationalizes and gets the work done. So what I'm trying to find out is, what have you all done to ensure that you now have capable and suitable staff?
Thank you very much, Member. At the executive level, we recognize immediately where we were. And the board took the action to bring on board those people who were necessary. At the day-to-day operational level, our executive, through our CEO, has been addressing that. And so if you don't mind, I will again defer to my CEO to respond to that.
What we've done is that we've looked at what our core competencies are in the business. Already in our business, our core competencies reside around 3 or 4 key areas: mining and geological surveys, blasting, operating the equipment that we have, and really I would add safety to that. What we have been embarking on is forming relationship with the universities. We've met with Professor Townsend, and we're looking to bring in young graduates into the business who have special capabilities or capabilities in those particular areas, mining, particularly around blasting, and the ability to do effective geological surveys. So it's really through a partnering relationship with the university where we can help to build young human resource that we are trying to fill those gaps in the short term. We expect that some of these graduates that come in will want to stay with the company and therefore create career paths with us for the future.
Okay, so I note what you said. Mining is critical, and I noted there are 4 vacancies in that area. That's one. You're also speaking futuristically in bringing the young graduates in and having them trained, so we can see the organization benefiting from them maybe in 2 to 3 years. So what I'm having a difficulty understanding is that the company expects to be profitable by the end of this year. In the absence of these key resources, how are you going to achieve that?
Well, currently the organization has resources that I would say is capable of producing the mines in a way that can be efficient. Where the real opportunity is being able to understand the full potential of the mines and what are the reserves that are yet to be discovered and what is the best approaches to doing that. And secondly, it's about having the resources to be able to produce the product with new ideas and technology that is able to continually drive the cost of production down. So in the short term, there is capacity to continue operations, but to make the business sustainable is where we need to think a little bit further out and get the right resources in. There's 30 years of experience at mining the asset at National Quarries. And, that's how we see we fill the short-term gap until we get these resources up and running.
But are you satisfied? Because when we look at the history with National Quarries, we can understand why they are where they are in terms of not being profitable. And you are very strong in your belief that you are going to be profitable by the end of the year. It's just that I'm not seeing the link between the resources that do not have the necessary capacity at this point in time, in addition to which, in the document, there's also talk about not having the correct culture and the need for culture change. So I'm just trying to understand how you are going to treat with those things to ensure that by the end of this year, you can be profitable.
Thank you very much, Member. Mr. Chairman, I respond with your permission. When the board came together 2 years ago, there was no relationship between production, marketing, or knowledge of what was happening in the business. The board took the decision that we needed to drive people to understand how the business worked. And so we started what we call the annual corporate meeting. And what did that do? We took the opportunity to show members of staff for the first time ever the finances of the business, where we were losing money, the fact that we had no written contracts, that everything was, in an unsystematic way in which business was done. So we had to engage. It was a new thing because when members actually were told about this meeting, it was like, what is this all about? What do we need to know? But that was different from the way in which the board had engaged businesses previously, so that we started bringing the organization together. These are the financials as we knew them at the time, and this is what it will take to make this business successful. That was one part. The second part of that was ensuring that that continued. So we had the start of the year, call it the annual corporate. We had the mid-year where we said this is what we were going to do, and this is where we are today. And that now has become a part of the business. It's a whole culture change for the business. On top of that, we felt that we needed to engage people at a lower level. And so the board had a discussion with the executive again. We have supervisors who don't know, what is the production target for any day. People just produce. We were mining from 5 mines that we didn't need to mine from, and that was a cost to us. So that what the executive was able to say, or what the board was able to say to the executive, engage your supervisors at a lower level and make them understand where they fall in the business and what we are doing. And more than that, we said we needed to get, and in fact, the words used by me said, this thing is almost like a case study, We need to get a guiding coalition of change. Who are those people who are on the bus and willing to go along with us? And then we will have those who we have to pull on the bus, and maybe some may not get on the bus. But we have to do it in such a way where we engage our people to become excited about what we are trying to do. More than that, there was the issue of trust in the business, where no one trusted the management, no one trusted the board, no one trusted any form of leadership. And it takes time. But it is 2 years now since this board is in place, and what do we have? We have a situation in which people are engaging with us, where even today, they are aware that we are going to be here, they are listening right now, and they have sent us, comments and say, good luck, because we are there with you. Now, that is a significant turnaround from a business in which we had to make some hard decisions, and I'll tell you some of the decisions. The board took this decision that substance abuse is an issue that we would not treat with in any small way. So we banned all alcohol, nothing in that organization, alcohol or any form of substance, and people had a problem with that. We said we will accept no gift beyond $100. Anything more, and it has alcohol, it goes back, all right? We said we will not have the company closed down before the end of the year, because we closed almost for 10 days. The highest production level we have had in more than 10 years was last month. okay? Because we are trying to change a culture to ensure that people are engaged in the success of this business. And more than that, we have made it abundantly clear that the only role of this board is to ensure the success of this business, nothing else, and we want nothing from the company. And that is how we push the culture change.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Madam Mrs. Critchlow Coburn. Before I give the floor to MP Leons, I just have there were some issues raised in your responses, Mr. Chairman, that kind of troubled me, so I'm seeking clarity. Now, the issue about the line understanding the targets, it jumps out at me because I would have thought that the company would have clear production targets and would have some kind of scorecard to keep track, and that would flow, cascade through the system. But then I recognize it's a challenge because I look firstly at one of your submissions, and it says, I think on page 9, that currently National Quarry does not maintain information regarding the market size or its market share. So that if you don't have data on the market size or your market share, then the ability to know what to produce is a big question mark. So that for me is a big gap, and forgive me. And I want to marry it. I want to marry it to some of the information inside of your strategic draft plan that you all are working on. We're projecting for limestone that production will increase by 300% from last year to this year. So that when I marry those bits of information, you don't seem to have a good grasp on the size of the market and what's your share of the market. You're forecasting a 300% increase in a particular area of the business where we've heard that you have production challenges. And then I heard from you in your response that you have one of the issues is that you have mines operating that perhaps you don't need to operate, and it's because the persons down the line don't have the information as to know whether or not what should be mined and when. So that suggests to me that up here at this level, the target setting about, okay, this is the target for this month, and we're going to get X from these various mines. That is something in my respectful view should have been articulated above and then cascaded through the system. And then at the end of the period, you do a back check through a scorecard to see how well the company has performed against its target. So that's my logical thinking. So I need you to help me with that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and you're so correct. Again, just taking a quick step back, and I don't like to step back, but I have to tell you, when the board came into place, the question was, what is our production target? So someone looked at me, no response. I said, what are our sales for today? Someone looked at, I said, what are we working with? Nothing. The board actually had to put in place, and this is where it became a little bit dicey because the board now had to literally, because it was not known. So we were able to get, the daily production and sales figures in place because there were no data available to manage the business. They produce, they sell, or they sold. It was like, is this a serious business? I'm coming from a background in the energy sector, Trinidad and Tobago and wherever, it was uncomfortable for a chair with that kind of background to operate. So we started then to say, let's work by data. Because the question was, what are our markets? Well, we don't know. Who are we selling to? Well, when we produce, we sold. So, Mr. Chair, we moved from that to where we are now. And I'm going to, again, because as I say, this is not an executive chair. We have we have our executives here, and I'm going to defer again to my CEO, who would respond to that in a way which addresses exactly what you're asking about.
Mr. Chairman, very, very good question. And one of the key items on our strategic plan is doing a market, understanding the market a little better. I take as point one on the strategic plan. So, in fairness, we do quite understand the size of the market, and we do quite understand what our share of the market is. What we've done, though, is that we've started a process, in particular with the government institutions that is responsible for infrastructure development. We meet with them quarterly to understand what their forecasts look like and where we could support meeting the demand for that infrastructure development. Our budget for 2017-2018 is based on that forecast, which is something we didn't have before. We've also been meeting with our customers on a one-by-one basis to understand what their outlook looks like and how they see their business evolving in 2018. And we have been using that data, not exactly where we'd want to be, to create our projections for 2017, 2018. And in our strategic plan, it's probably a little bit conservative that our target for sand and gravel for 2018 is 695,000 tons. Yep. I believe we sold a little bit more in 2016, 2017. But that's all around trying to manage the risk of not having a fully understanding the market and where we fit. But we'll close that gap once we get our marketing plan done.
Okay. Well, that is an obvious big issue, that you're running a business and you're not crystal or have a good handle on the size of the market is a big red herring. That is something that needs urgent attention. I can't see how you can run a business and you don't have some kind of feel for the size of the market. And then if you don't understand the size of the market, then what you're producing relative to the market, are we the number 5? Are we the number 1? So that speaks to something that should be attached urgently. I have a couple of followers that I will allow now, MP Leons, because I have a train of thinking on it, because the TTITI does some work in understanding the size of the market, and I want to be able to open that conversation. But I will now give the floor to MP Leons.
Thanks, Chair. With respect to the last statement, with respect to the market, and I could stand corrected, I was under the impression that when we were doing the road works, the highway works, that the country didn't have enough capacity to supply the aggregate, and we were bringing in aggregate from as far as Nova Scotia. So in terms of market, I'm sure in terms of building capacity, especially with the projected work to be done, that it's somewhat of an open market, right? My question was specifically to the increase in productivity, which after these chairmen spoke, there's a culture change that is required. And we also spoke about increasing maintenance and that kind of stuff to get the efficiency of the machinery. In light of the existing equipment that you all have, is there room for investment in new equipment? And how are we treating with that?
All right, I'll let our CEO take that question.
Chairman, member. Your question is directly related to the production from the limestone division. That material is used to support the road building infrastructure works. And historically, there would have been question marks in the local market about the ability to supply in terms of quantity, as well as the quality of the local materials. The other material that is available within Trinidad and Tobago that can support road building works would be the andesite material out of Studley Park in Tobago. That having been said, of course, the import of aggregates would involve, of course, utilization of scarce foreign exchange, and it would always be in our best interest to produce locally if it is we have the capacity to do so. So in pursuit of that, what we have sought to do is to put new contractual arrangements in place for our limestone division, which is a 125-acre quarry. So through a public-private partnership, we have put in place a new arrangement which would significantly improve our ability to produce. We are looking at new equipment coming in there within the first quarter of this year, with significantly increased capacity over what would have existed before. So any concerns about our ability to supply against what are the actual projected demands for NIDCO, AECOM, Pure, as we understand it through directly meeting with them, should not be a major challenge for us.
Is this arrangement of transition where there's a public-private partnership that will eventually be weaned off, where National Quarries will take full ownership? one, and the second one is interesting that you mentioned the Studley Park. The Studley Park has a special type of aggregate, high quality. What is the strategic alliance between yourselves, the THA, and the production and in that area?
All right. So to your first question, in terms of the nature of the relationship, it's a 3-year production contract that does not specifically speak to transition at this point in time. However, that is something that we have thought about and discussed, and that may become a possibility in the future. So as it stands, it's simply a 3-year production contract. With regard to the THA and Studley Park, there's no official strategic relationship between ourselves and them. However, we do exercise a cooperative relationship as with other state enterprises.
In terms of product, because I see this entity as a gold mine for the country, right? You agree?
Yes,
and with the strategic advancements that we are making, and I'm really happy to hear the energy coming from the chairman and that seriousness in changing culture and stuff. Is there any discussion or activity currently for, one, the same arrangement with respect to the partnership for us to build our personal capacity for it? Because after 3 years, then what happens? And two, the gold mine that we have in Tobago, how are we going to maximize that into the benefit of our national community?
Member, I would say part of our strategic plan looks at how we build capacity to be able to meet the needs of aggregate for infrastructure building and for home building. And I think there is still some work to be done for how we do that in partnership with other suppliers of material and maybe Studley Park. We haven't actually spent the time and the detail for looking at what a strategic relationship would be like. And, we'll evaluate it. We want to say thanks for the idea, but we haven't actually taken a deep look into what a strategic relationship would look like. What we have been discussing with Studley Park is exchanges of equipment so that, we maintain reliability and the ability to supply. We've started some discussions with Studley Park last year around, how we actually optimize equipment between assets to be able to maintain security of supply. Beyond that, we haven't had any deeper strategic discussions.
Just a comment.
That's fair.
In my personal view, and this is my personal opinion, it'd be very sad if we as a country and as a people don't capitalize on that. And maybe a private entity abroad see the opportunity and comes and invests, and then you realize this gold mine we have is now being realized and benefited by others. Thank you.
We appreciate the comment, and we certainly will take note of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, MP. Leons, I now give the floor to Senator Mark.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and may I warmly welcome all. We know that minerals are both finite and non-renewable by nature. I recalled sometime in 2014, a former chairman of National Quarries made a statement in the newspapers that National Quarries controlled 65% of the market for aggregates in the Republic of TNT. It's either he didn't know what he was speaking about, or he knew what he was speaking about. So I am somewhat alarmed that we are being told that a company that is about to make 40 years of existence and a board that has been appointed for 2 years and 2 months with your new management team cannot provide to this committee and through us to the country the size of the market. So I think you need to clear the air for me and for us as to this 2014 statement, whether it was pie in the sky or airy-fairy, or whether we need to know something more about it. Mr. Chairman, you could clear the air for us.
Thank you very much, Member. Again, through the Chair. National Quarries at the moment has been having meetings with the main movers within the construction sector on behalf of the government of Trinidad and Tobago. Those organizations are NITCO, PURE, the consultants on the highway, AECOM, okay? And of course, we have had meetings with on the other side, that is on the aggregate, sharp sand, 3/8 and all of that. We have had meetings with the Housing Development Corporation. We have had a discussion with the minister involved there. What we have projected in terms of our capacity to supply is based on information that we got. In fact, when we spoke with Minister Randall Mitchell, okay, the minister advised us that he would speak directly with the Housing Development Corporation. We had an extensive meeting with the HDC, and arising out of that meeting, the HDC said to National Quarries, these are our projections from now till the next 3 years. And what we will be doing is that we will suggest to our main contractors that this percentage of the product must be taken from you, okay? Apart from that, our discussions with NITCO, the chairman of NITCO, Mr. Herbert George, and all of his technical people, what they provided us with is the projections of road building taking place. And we took the position, what percentage can we realistically supply based on the capacity of our plant in this? And so our budgets were based on that. The point that I'm making, Senator Mark, is the fact that all figures that are provided in our budget are based on exact meetings with the key stakeholders who are working on behalf of the government of Trinidad and Tobago. And being prudent managers, what we decided is that we are not going to state that we can supply 100% of that. We can't. But we know what percentage based on our plants, based on our reliability, based on our public-private partnership in the case of the limestone division. And so what we are saying is that we have realistic data in terms of what we can supply. We also are aware that there may have been issues of, our quality. We have addressed that from all sides. We brought in AECOM. We talked about the labs where the material is tested. We got additional advice from AECOM in terms of what, and every single one of those agencies are saying, we have no problem with what you supply. So in terms of percentages, I'm not going to go on a discussion that I don't have any data to treat with. I will leave that just as it is. But I would say, based on what we have provided in our budget, from a perspective of realistic production on our plants, our reliability, our resources, that is where we are based on the discussions we have had with the ministries, with the providers for government financing of road building projects.
I think that you all have to work harder and come up with some, maybe the cooperation of the Ministry of Energy, that is a regulatory agency for minerals in this country, and the amount of illegal mining that is taking place here, that is undermining the state coffers, and I'll come to that because that's a big issue. I would like to ask you, your board and the company by extension has taken the decision, which is very positive, to restart the payment of royalties, business levy, and the Green Fund. Could you tell this committee what is the exact outstanding amounts owed by National Quarries to the people of Trinidad and Tobago in terms of royalties, in terms of business levy, and in terms of the Green Fund? And what is the timeline you'll have as it relates to fulfilling your obligations to the Treasury in terms of these very important items?
Thank you very much, Member Mark. With respect to royalties, again, when the board was constituted, we recognized that there was an outstanding amount, and Mr. Bihari will tell you it's in the vicinity of about between 38 and 40 million. Mr. Bihari? But you came into an organization that was not making a profit, that was in a deep, dark place in terms of its operations. So that while that sum of money had been outstanding, the board took a decision that going forward, we will ensure that we make our commitments as far as is possible. And so, as a result of that, this board began the payment of royalties, and as it is, we have paid, since we came into being, $5,411,927. It is a small amount, sir, but I always believe that when you walk, you start with the first creep. And so this board, since its inception, has paid this $5 million and continued to pay. With respect to issues of our Green Fund and all of that, similarly, we met a situation which was untenable, and we have taken the position that we will address that, and we have started addressing those. But more than that, at the end of this financial year, sir, this company will not be owing the government of Trinidad and Tobago any issue with respect to Green Fund and all of those. The royalty issue of that 40 million, it is not something that can be addressed today. But we recognize it is there. The ministry has been working with us, and the ministry has also seen our efforts in terms of addressing the issue. But if it is that you are in a almost difficult position to meet your daily commitments, while there is the issue of ensuring you meet government commitments, at least the position that we have taken is that we are here and we are not going to let it pile up. We are going to pay as much as we can pay on a consistent basis. And at the end of this year, all issues with respect to that, with the exception of the outstanding royalties of 40 million, we will address those.
Yeah, may I ask Mr. Selwyn Lashley, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry, because of the criminal activities taking place in the mining industry and the mineral sector in particular, in which we have been advised that between the period 2001 to 2015, royalties to the people of Trinidad and Tobago by mining companies stood at roughly $120 million. That was at the end of 2015, in accordance with a national minerals policy draft issued by your ministry. Only 10% of that was collected, which was roughly 12 million. So we are owed, up to 2015, $108 million in royalties. We understand that there are scores rather. In fact, from that report issued by your ministry, we understand that there are 88 active mining operations in this country. Only 42 are licensed, and 46 licenses have expired. We also understand that there are 47 new applications for mining licenses being processed by the Ministry of Energy and Energy Affairs as at the end of February 2015. And there was 62 processing plants currently operating without licenses in Trinidad and Tobago. Now, Mr. Latche, I raise all these things to ask you, as the regulatory agency for the mineral sector, how is this contributing to the undermining of the National Quarries Company of Trinidad and Tobago, when we have so many illegal mining operators in this country not paying any royalties, and they are doing it at will? And this has been going on from between the period 2001 and maybe before. I am just dealing with your report, 2001 to 2015. Maybe you need to bring us up to date with what is the current state of affairs with illegal mining, and what is the ministry doing to address this plague in our country? Because we are in a tight situation. Some people can't even get water when they go to ministries and tea. And the reason for that is because we don't have the funding. But here it is, we have $120 million in royalties to be collected, minus 10% of that. So let's say $108 million. So could you share with this committee what is being done by the Ministry of Energy and Energy Affairs to bring this madness to some degree of order so that we can gain what is rightfully ours? And to those who are illegally mining, either they get licensed to properly mine or they are put out of business. But they cannot continue to rob the people of Trinidad and Tobago of our mineral resources, which, as you know, as you stated, finite and non-renewable. So could you share with us what is being done to deal with that, and how is that undermining the National Quarries Company of Trinidad and Tobago? Could you help us with that, sir?
Right, thank you, Member Mark. The issue is threefold. What you describe as illegal mining, I think we could categorize into unlicensed in terms of having a current license. You mentioned in your submission that there are some operators whose licenses may have expired and are in the process of renewal. But then there's the other category of downright illegal mining, where it is an issue that has plagued the industry for quite some time. It rears its head, of course, whenever there's an upsurge in activity, when the demand for aggregate is high, and the efforts at controlling are sometimes stymied by the fact that the illegal operators have a lot of inside information. They operate outside of the daylight hours. They have, they poach in terms of conduct activities adjacent to legally licensed operations. The ministry, of course, has been pursuing clamping down on these activities in conjunction with other agencies who have responsibilities. For instance, the Office of the Commissioner of State Lands, the EMA, Water Resources Agency, etc., and engaging the services and support of the national security arm, because in a large measure of these instances and locations, there's a criminal element associated. And in fact, there have been numerous instances where in going after and curtailing operations, there have been some casualties. I use the word, lightly, but certainly there's a lot of resistance to providing information that is necessary in order to go forward and clamp down on some of these activities. Having said that, the licensing process, as you mentioned, there are applications currently being considered by the ministry. The license process involves information and approvals coming from other agencies as well. So, for instance, having approval from the Town and Country Planning Division, having approval, a CC for certain activities, having and showing valid and confirmed proof of title to the particular lands that have been applied for is something that needs to flow into the licensing process. And we have been experiencing some difficulties in terms of various elements of the information flowing in, not coming forward at the pace that we would like to see. Notwithstanding that, we've been collaborating closely with the agencies responsible and moving forward as best we could to get as many of the, and I categorize them as unlicensed operators, back in within the fold. Now, you mentioned the outstanding royalties that may or may not be have accrued to the state. One of the issues we have a challenge with is there have been some resistance or some pushback in some instances where people are claiming that because of the uncertain title, that in fact numbers that we ascribe as having a duty or royalty to the state may actually be, in part, be payments that are due to private individuals who have the mineral rights. That is a process that we are actively pursuing, again in conjunction with the Chief State Solicitor's Office, where the interrogation into the proof of title, and in particular the mineral rights, is one where is very important in terms of establishing and confirming the royalty outstanding slate for some of these people. I'll stop here and allow my Director of Minerals to give some more detail around some of these activities. He can add some, and I can come back to deal with some of the current activities that are actually taking place as we speak in terms of going after some of the reports and the information coming back to us in terms of illegal activity, and to also answer the question in terms of the impact on national quarries.
Chairman, yes, just to build on what Pierce had said, we have been actively pursuing the collection of royalties. In fact, our records, as audited by our internal auditors, indicate that in the past 3 years, we have collected, going back 2015, 4.134 million, 2016, 5.215 million, 2017, 8.298 million. So we have started increasing our collection of revenue from the sector in the form of royalties and license fees. So we have made some positive strides in that sense. Again, as Pierce indicated, we are working closely with the Chief State Solicitor's Office to ascertain title and mineral rights, since surface rights may be owned by the state or may be owned privately. Mineral rights may be owned by the state or owned privately. And once we are certain that, we'll know what is the liability due to the state in the cases where the state owns the mineral rights. Thanks.
So actually the number of illegal activities taking place in the country in terms of the number, and how is that undermining the National Quarries as a state organization?
You could deal with the number.
Yes, Chairman, currently within the past 4 or 5 months, we received 14 complaints of illegal quarrying. These are persons who would have entered upon parcels of land, state land in particular, or some cases private land. They have no former licenses, they have no tenure in quarrying ever, and we have referred those matters to the Ministry of National Security to assist with enforcement. And the Ministry of National Security is actively looking into these matters, and that's as much as I'd like to say at this time on that. But I can assure you that the Ministry of National Security has it on their agenda. The Trinidad Police Service is actively dealing with these matters.
Just to add, and I noticed, Chairman, you bow forward a bit. The issue in terms of pursuit of illegal mining operations is one that requires a bit of secrecy, let's say, because in a large number of instances, when we get reports, between getting the reports and responding and going, there has been an observation that, in fact, the more information that's out there, sometimes it stymies the efforts of arresting or catching the perpetrators in the act and going forward with proper prosecution. So that is the only reason why Director Minerals has said that on national TV. Going back to the question Member Mark about the impact on National Quarries. National Quarries having tenure over certain parcels in very prime mineral acreages have in fact been the victims of illegal quarrying to parts of their acreage. In fact, in some of the surveillance that has been done by the company, and in fact reported by other people who have done surveillance in the field, it has been discovered that in fact part of the resource that is in the hands of National Quarries, from time to time, illegal quarry operators would have mined parts of those resources, so that, as you quite rightly say, that would be undermining, no pun intended, the resource base of National Quarries, and in fact the potential for the company to increase its profitability and in fact revenue coming to the state by virtue of the royalties that National Quarries would, of course, if properly mined, flow back to the state. So I don't know if that answers your question, that in fact that is one area. The other area, of course, is obvious. If in fact there's a market out there that these people are supplying, it is a market that National Quarries could have been supplying, and certainly, of course, that's the other negative impact of illegal mining.
If you permit me, Member Kayam, the Brigadier General, has a quick follow-up.
Yes, I have to ask the Chairman's permission to interject here. Because based on the questions that have been asked, we are dealing with a very broad area. I want to narrow it down a little bit in dealing with illegal mining. In the response from National Quarries, you said that you are working on an MOU with the Defense Force. So I want to know what is the status of that MOU. Yeah. The second question I want to ask is that we are dealing with a Ministry of Government, and we are dealing with a state enterprise, right, who producing a product. So you have customers that you are selling your product to, and there's illegal quarrying going on, and these illegal people are selling their product to your customer. What action are you taking with your customer to deal with illegal quarrying? Therefore, if it is that your customer is purchasing aggregate illegally, then therefore you can take certain action against your customer so that to debar them from taking the steps in terms of illegal quarrying. So I want to move away from the royalties and the licensing and so forth to see what is National Quarries dealing with in terms of the MOU with the Defense Force, what is the status of that, and also what are you dealing with your customers who are purchasing aggregate illegally from those who are involved in illegal mining, both in your acreage or raping the country. When I fly fly over Valencia area, you see the extent of illegal quarrying. So what action are you taking in terms of your customer base?
Thank you very much, Member. I'll start with the actions that National Quarries has taken with respect to illegal quarrying within the acreage. National Quarries occupies 2,400 acres in the Turure area of Sangre Grande. And when the board came into existence, we discovered that there was illegal mining on more than one occasion. The board felt that the company of itself couldn't address this, but we had the capacity to think through how this thing could be done. And in thinking the process through, we asked for a couple of things. One, we said, if we can get an agreement among some state agencies, starting with the Commissioner of State Land, along with the Defense Force, the police, and inclusive of the Air Guard, we should be able to address some of the issues. And so a meeting was organized among those key stakeholders. And all we asked for at the time, and I'm not going to say when, was for the Air Guard to do a piece of work along with the actual men on the ground. And that process went into place some time ago, and we are happy to report since then there has been absolutely no incursion of illegal quarrying on the National Quarries land, okay? And that has proven to be extremely effective, so much so that apparently, you know, boots on the ground creates fear on the part of people, and so they stay away. We have had none since that took place. With respect to the actual MOU, all of the details have been in place, and only last week we sent a follow-up letter to, is it Commander Pritchard, is his name? Commodore Pritchard, you know, stating, you know, we are ready to sign the document. All of the legalities and all of that have gone through, and we have even, you know, made some additional suggestions. And this was because of the good collaboration we had between all of the members of the of our defense services. We're talking about the police, the Army, the Air Guard, everybody. And we have to thank, you know, the Defense Force and all of the other people who have supported National Quarries. And I must say, it's an organization that everybody seemed to want for it to be successful, and we are very happy about that. With respect to the customers, we have to say that one of the things about National Quarries is the quality of what we sell. And if it is that the man in the street is buying a product that does not meet the quality for his block manufacturing or whatever process, or even if it's a small consumer building a home, then that person has the opportunity. But there's no way that we can actually go out and say, don't buy product that may or may not come from a particular area. What we can say, and we have been saying, and the market says it, in terms of the quality of product that you want, the place to go is the National Quarries Company, because our reputation is for the delivery of quality product. And that goes from two sides. One, we have the ISO certification, which
9,000.
ISO 9000 certification. And two, even from just the man on the street, is this good compared to what I get? We have it there. So that's how we intend to address that. Thank you so much.
Again, dealing from government agencies, we have a Bureau of Standards in terms of the standards of products. But we also deal with big customers. I'm not talking about the man in the street who is building a house. I'm talking about the Ministry of Works who are doing road construction, right? You have big customers and other private organizations that you can deal with in terms of the purchase of illegal aggregate.
What we have done, member, is we have held meetings with the agencies that are responsible for implementing government's policy decisions. Again, those agencies are NITCO, PURE, the National Housing Corporation, and from us, what we have been able to get is the fact that they know that we have the product that is of the quality that they need. In terms of influencing where they go, because they don't do their business directly, they work through the subcontractors. And that part, to the extent of the quality of what we produce, whether tested in the labs at Kariri or otherwise, that's where we can go. But to literally say, don't buy from, we don't know who those people are in the first place. All we can say is, you want quality, you come to the National Quarries Company Limited. And they are aware of that, and we are partnering with them, and they feel comfortable that the place to go. In fact, in one of the discussions that we had, one of the organizations said, we will put in our contract that you must take this percentage of product from the National Quarries Company Limited. In terms of addressing the outside user, it's a matter of choice. And in the end, it will be the quality that you get will determine the quality of the product that you deliver.
Thank you, Chairman. I now give the floor to MP Karim.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Let me add my welcome to the 9 members on the front row and others as well who are here from the media. My first question is, does the National Quarries Limited, do you have, at this time as we speak, a valid license to mine?
The answer is no.
And might you tell the country why is that so? Because we have been listening to you all morning.
Yes.
And we are talking about illegal quarrying. And we're talking about systems that are absent, because I listened to the chairman and he made some very important comments about the strategies for advancement. Can you tell us why, and how long now have you been operating without a valid license?
So I'll give you the facts that, as I know them. The history I'm not clear on, but we have not had a mining license, as far as I understand. Let me go back into the history. What I could say, though, is that we have applied for the mining license. We have placed our application in last week, and our intention is to be able to get the license to mine national quarries. We expect, however, that process will take some time, because it requires a certain degree of technical work, both on the CEC side as well as on the technical assessment of reserves.
Are you illegally mining, therefore? No, I want to answer to that specific question. If you do not have a license to mine, do we conclude that, therefore, you are engaging in illegal mining?
Right. Part of the process for the operation of the company treats with going through the certificate of environmental clearance and all of that. As you're aware, the company would have gone past the process of it, got its license, it expired, it moved on. This board came into place and found that there was no action with respect to treating with that issue. Immediately on coming on board, we wrote to our ministry and said, look, this is where we are. We need to do certain things. We went out and we sourced the relevant organizations to help us with the certificate of environmental clearance. Cost $3.6 million. Among the things that we did is that we said this company is in a situation where it needs financing to move forward. So in discussions with our ministry, we sought to get a bit of a loan guarantee to help us treat with those issues. The government's position was that we are in a deep position and we cannot help the way we'd like to help. Go back and see what you can do. So what did we do? We went back and we said, look, we cannot do the full 2,400 acres. But what
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted, because we have that time constraint as a committee, I just wanted to find out a very simple question. Since this board came into effect, have you therefore been mining illegally without a valid certificate? That's all I want to ask.
Yeah, and I would say no. We are in the process of correcting the situation.
No, but I'm asking again the question. Do you have, when you came into being, and since you were there in November, whatever it is, 2015, for the last 2 years, are you in possession? Can you present to this committee your valid licenses to mine? Do you have one?
I cannot present it.
Do you
I
have
can
one?
Show you,
Do you have one, sir?
I can show you the process.
No, not the process. No,
I'm
not.
to get there.
That's like I going for a license to drive a motor car and I go and do all these regulations. I am asking.
I remember, I think the permanent secretary is just trying to get my attention to provide some elucidation. Permanent secretary.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just to add some clarity, in my earlier statement, I had attempted to make a distinction between an unlicensed operation and illegal mining. I think that's the term being used that National Quarries is operating illegally. I think the point the chairman was trying to make was that they are currently in the process of obtaining a valid license. They formerly had a license, and they are in the process of now obtaining a
so
valid license.
Are you saying, Mr. Permanent Secretary, that they are operating without license and unlicensed?
Yes, they are unlicensed at this time.
That's all I'm asking. And I want to also pursue some other questions. Could you indicate to us what's the value, monetary value, the amount of money outstanding in terms of license fees and royalties from persons who are associated with the National Quarries? And as I am asking that, I want to go on to the marketing question after, because I'm not sure how long this current CEO has been in the office, so I want to pursue that. Could you tell us the value that the state is forgoing in terms of the opportunity costs that we could have been using that money for other investable purposes?
I'll ask Director Minerals to give you an update, Chair.
Chairman, with respect to the National Quarry sand and gravel operations, data we have up until 31st March 2017, the period April to the end of last year still being audited. So as at 31 March 2017, sand and gravel two-ray operations was $38,022,354.50 in royalties. With respect to the National Quarries limestone operation at Scott's Quarry, at 31st March 2017, the outstanding royalties are $10,207,048.24.
So in other words, we have approximately $49 million outstanding.
That's correct.
Could you tell us, I don't know if I can ask you to tell us who are some of these major persons owing and what steps are being taken to recover that money? Because I listen to the chairman and one could understand the situation in which we find ourselves, and therefore any amount of receivables, and in terms of also payables, which I'll be asking.
The figures I quoted are for National Quarries.
Yes,
the
sure.
two operations.
Sure. What are we doing in terms of recovering this money in terms of National Quarries for those outstanding amounts?
Remember, it's the board in coming in to be recognized that we had a huge debt, and noting where this debt was, we decided that we take specific action. I'll just give an example of one.
Sure.
One of those organizations that was outstanding significant sum to National Quarries is a company called OAS Constitura. Okay? OAS just decided that they're not going to pay. The board felt that we wouldn't treat with it this way, so we went to court and we got a judgment. But when we got the judgment, there was no money to pay, so what we ended up getting was equipment. So we got the equipment, which was the value, or almost the value of the debt, which was approximately $6 million. The equipment was essentially trucks and some pavers and all of that, but those are assets that diminish real fast. So the company decided, let us get the cash for this thing as quickly as possible. And so we conducted an auction. but the auction yielded less than $3 million because of the quality of the equipment that we got. Now, having said that, we actually engaged our legal people to go after some of these people who just were not paying. And I'm happy to say that payment has begun. And most of the people who we are treating with, they are making payments not as we would like them to make it, but we are seeing a difference. In other words, the debt is not just standing and becoming totally uncollectible. We are in a position now where some of the debt has actually been completed, and we still have some outstanding.
If it permit the Chair, I would like to request that the entire process that the company is undertaking regarding these outstanding monies, could you provide a submission to this committee detailing the strategy that you are undertaking, detailing the current status of all of the various parties who you've taken actions against, and the status of what your assessment of the recoverability of this debt. I think this is something significant, and I would like the committee to be provided with a status update on that. MP Karim.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chairman, earlier on, I think the ISO 9000 was made mention of. I'm not sure what's the status of your current accreditation, even in terms of ISO 14000. Are you currently properly accredited?
Yes, we are, and I'll just have our Chief Operating Officer speak with that.
Chairman, member, we were recertified to both ISO 9000 and ISO 14000 last year, and we were recertified against the 2015 standard.
What is the situation of your lab work? Is it, very effective, very efficient? Is the lab operating well? Is it delivering to expectations?
We have a fully staffed laboratory that runs the full suite of tests required for our aggregate products, both at the sand and gravel division, as well as our limestone division. We've also been working collaboratively with ACOM, who are the main consultants to NIDCO for the highways program, as well as with Pure and their internal laboratory to make sure that we have good alignment with our customers insofar as testing is concerned.
Okay.
Additionally, we also work closely with Kariri to do external third-party verification of our internal tests.
Okay. All right. The other thing I wanted to deal with is to come back to this aspect of the marketing plan, because the chairman did indicate earlier on in terms of your strategies for moving forward, and the fact that you might be looking in a positive, you have a positive outlook by the end of this calendar year or this financial year. What is the situation with respect to this marketing plan? How far are you advanced? And while I'm asking that, this is for the 2-year period so far. I don't think you have completed it, have you?
Member Karim, if you could just repeat the question.
Yeah, I remember
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I just wanted to know the status of your marketing plan. Is it completed so that you're in a position to tell us what is the market share that you hold or that of your competitors? Whether you might do analysis, whether legal, not that the analysis is illegal, but those extraneous.
Good. Our last board meeting was last Thursday, and our marketing folks provided the details for the full marketing plan to the board. The board reviewed the document as provided by the executive and provided additional insight into some more of what is expected that will give us a firm handle on where we are. In fact, when the board came together, we had no marketing, but we felt it was absolutely necessary for us to get that expertise in and use that resource to help us in terms of our planning. And that is what made the big difference, because we were now producing based on the market requirements. Before we produced, and there was no relationship between market and production. So you may have overproduced, let's say, on 3/8, when in fact 3/8 wasn't what was required. Sharp sand may have been the requirement. So our marketing folks have been doing a job of having a relationship between what is expected outside there and what we produce. But more than that, Marketing is driven by hard data. And this is why our marketing folks now were mandated by the board to come up with the process for us to do that deep dive into where we are with the market. Hence the reason when the question was asked about what percentage of the market, we are not going to try and fool ourselves and say we have 10% or whatever until we have the data, because this executive and board, we are driven primarily only by data that we can assess and analyze, and that is where we are.
So you're not in a position at this stage to say as yet what is your market share?
No, but we will be able soon enough.
And 2 years ago and 2 years hence, given the data in a small economy like ours, that is something challenging, isn't it?
The way in which the market operates, first you have to understand, we had no one with the capacity to even tell us what to do. So we had to first recruit that expertise. Given and you speak of the size of the market, but it's the number of players in the market. It's not just Trinidad and Tobago is a small market. How many players do we have? Who are the miners? Who are the buyers? Who are the biggest buyers? What are they using it for? Those are the things that we had to address. We now know, for us, because we had no data as a board, who are our biggest buyers? What do they use the product for? Who are the ones who wanted to buy what they call dirty ballast to do further refining so that they could cut our throat? And we had to say, that is not a product that we will be producing.
Given the data that you now have, and given the fact that we are experiencing a downturn in the economy, do you have an inventory concern? Do you have an oversupply? Do you have a stock that you're finding it difficult to get it? Or everything that you produce is being bought?
I can let my CEO respond to that.
No, at this time, what we produce is being bought. There is no inventory, major inventory that we have in stock at this time.
Mr. CEO, how long now are you in that position?
November the 27th, 2017. That's about 2 months.
So maybe I may be able to ask this question now. The chairman earlier on, I don't know, I'm not sure who it is, made mention of a public-private partnership. Can you give us some information as to that public-private partnership? Was it advertised? Did it go through the full processes? What was the purpose of it? Who is the person that was the preferred selected in that public-private partnership? What were they selected for? And I want to ask a question. Did that person meet the experiential requirements of performing the job?
One of the things that the board found when it came into existence was the absence of pre-qualified providers of service to National Quarries. And to ensure that we followed all of the requirements of the procurement legislation, we went out publicly. You would have seen it in the newspaper, where we invited people to come and buy the packages to pre-qualify, and just to make sure people understand what that is. To pre-qualify, it requires each person to provide who the directors are, who are your bankers, your 3 years of financial statements, your ability to perform the service and where you have performed the service before, okay? And all of the other issues for you to pre-qualify. Following that, you become part of the list of selected providers. Having done that, what we said is any service that we have to go out for, we will ensure that we have pre-qualified vendors, to do that. And so in the case of the crushing contract, it was no different. In fact, the people who came to buy the packages, they had all pre-qualified before, including, we believe, people who were just looking to see what we were doing. In other words, technically, they are our competitors, but they got involved in the pre-qualification to provide the crushing service for us.
Excuse me, this also with respect to the list of approved suppliers. But I was asking about what you made a comment on with respect to the public-private partnership.
Right. And so I'm going to continue with that. Okay. Right. In other words, it's a private firm. And what we are asking for, as all the suppliers, we are asking for someone who can provide us with a crushing service for a period of 3 years. Why? Because the current provider worked in the business and there was no contract. 2, the current provider worked in the business, but didn't have the level of technical delivery, if you wish. And this is not to suggest that they were incapable of doing it, but what we are looking at is quality of equipment, level of technical skills.
So who eventually won out in terms of supplying this service to you? What's the name of the company? Of all you have been saying, who is the person that...
Mr. Chair, is it okay if we send that out in writing, or you want the answer right off? Because we do have the answer.
I think we'll accept it in writing.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
And
We'll
when you are sending it in writing, could you also indicate whether that person who was the preferred selected company also had any previous dealings with the National Quarries Limited?
Definitely.
And the amount of experience they would have had to qualify in this regard?
Definitely.
All right. You made mention, if I may just... with respect to training and so on, and the fact that you had a deficiency in terms of your talent and capability, would you say that you would have experienced a high level, and I'm using high in terms of industry standards, a high level or concern for the level of staff turnover? That's the first thing. And secondly, with respect to training and development, you spoke about a certain professor, but which institution locally, or whether you had to send people outside of Trinidad and Tobago to be so trained? And is there a training plan, a training design, a needs analysis that you would have conducted to so inform it?
Okay. The company at the time we came on board was, had a large group of staff who were not necessarily what you might accustom for a simple processing plant like that. Let me explain. If you were to go to the Point Lisas Industrial Estate, you would have a series of people who are trained with the Mechanical Engineering Technician's Diploma, the Electrical Engineering Technician's Diploma, et cetera, et cetera. Our staff essentially came from the community in which the organization resides. And the level of technical expertise was not where we would have liked to see it, okay? But remember, these are people who are putting their best out to get this organization going. So how did we address that? We had to address it from the perspective of providing the kind of guidance at the top at first, because we didn't have the level of planned maintenance as we are accustomed to in, let's say, the Point Lisas environment, or checking on the reliability of our plant as we are accustomed to. So we brought in our chief operating officer, who came from that background, to be able to start to bring the staff around to a thinking that was far more manufacturing industrial than one in which we get the plant running, but not the way it ought to be running, okay? So that you had to look at it strategically from on top first, in that, do we have the right resource to be able to guide the process so that we can have planned maintenance and all of the other things that go along with that kind of reliability on the plant? And that's where we started.
Do you now have the right resource, the job fit?
Oh, we do. We have our
How many persons you have working employed in the NQ?
Right now,
there are 178 employees at National Quarries.
Okay, and I was asking in terms of building the capability, how many persons you have had to seek training for and where?
All right, so we have been training somewhere between 6 and 8% over the last year. And in terms of the training, what we have been doing is basically having the in-house training. And one avenue we have been exploring for further development is e-training through the Institute of Quarries Association, where we actually bring the training to the team on their computers rather than having them leave the site to do training. So we have been exploring that.
But what about in terms of any local institution? Have you had any collaboration with any agreement for training? You see, education and training must be demand-led. It's not supply-driven. And if you want to build your capacity and your capability, then you need to tell us, with whom have you been liaising to develop certain specific curricula to satisfy the needs of your company? who and what have you done in that regard?
We have had extensive discussion with Professor Brian Copeland, who is the principal of the University of the West Indies, where we sat and we looked at how can the university assist National Quarries to build the people capability. And what he suggested in our discussion, he says, look, we can do this from two levels. One, we have students who have to do final papers who we can provide over into your area to start looking at some of the areas. Now remember, we have different areas. We have the mining area, okay? We have the whole issue of the mechanical areas, etc. And up to 2 weeks ago, as chairman, I had another discussion with Professor Copeland in terms of moving the discussion from our discussion and agreements into actually making it happen right now.
Let me just ask, what specific program have you asked the University of Trinidad and Tobago, for example, your walk-by neighbor, who can respond to your needs, and who has a relationship and who has the curriculum in terms of mining and for improving quality in that area? Professor Copeland was just appointed, so you're going to have extensive discussions. But what programs have you sourced, not e-programs, not distance programs, what programs have you sourced in connection with and in collaboration with the tertiary institutions in Trinidad? And if you could give me an agreement and a specific course, for example.
Good. And I would like to state that we haven't gotten there as yet, and there is a reason for that. When you come into an organization that is as broken as ours, in terms of trying to address issues, there are so many things that need to be addressed. Example, as everyone knows, the company had not produced audited financial statements, and we had absolutely no one with even what the lowest level of ACCA. So, and I would suggest to you that making sure we get those things in place, as important as the plant was, there are certain things that we have
can
to
I
address.
just ask, because
you're
can I interject? Yeah. I would like National Quarries to provide the committee with what you're undertaking. What I'm sensing here is that the member is trying to get from you, have you done a training needs analysis? Okay, that is what I'm sensing.
A training plan.
And a training needs. You need to understand what your needs are, and then based on your needs, flows from that is a plan to say, listen, we targeting these areas. Mm-hmm. And I would like National Quarries to provide a document to us in terms of what you've done in that area, to try to understand, hey, we have all of these people in the company, these are the areas of our business, and our view is that we need training, we need to improve in these particular areas. In order to aid that improvement, to support that improvement, these are the strategies or the areas that require training in. So if you could provide that in writing to the committee, that will allow us to move on.
Yeah, you see that, I just want one question. You see, that will also help us to advise you as to where you can find the appropriate kind of training. Before the current CEO, as you mentioned in terms of your capability, could you tell us who was the CEO or acting CEO before Mr. Mohammed?
Before Mr. Mohammed, we had someone called...
Could you put on the mic?
Put your mic.
Sorry. Yeah. Before Mr. Mohammed, we had someone by the name of Sheldon Cyrus was our CEO, and before him, we had someone by the name of acting Mr. Bevan Cook.
How long did Mr. Cook act for?
We met him there. It must have been about 2.5, maybe 3 years.
So how long did he act under your remit as the CEO?
I don't want you to guess, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, and
I would prefer to...
Yeah, and I want to ask about, you see, I don't want to personalize it. So I want to, where I'm going with this is the capacity and the ability to manage an organization, which you said you found in a situation of need. So if you can give us in writing, Mr. Cook's acting duration, Mr. Cyrus as well. But very importantly, if you could tell us Mr. Cook's substantive position. You do remember it? Yeah. Before he acted as CEO? What was his position?
He was the reconciliation clerk.
So you had the reconciliation clerk acting as your chief executive officer of the National Quarries Limited. If you could provide us in writing, I'll be very grateful.
Thank you very much. I want to go, before I give the floor to the next member, I want to address a question on the money. And I want to ask, I've noted the response from the Ministry of Energy, Mr. Bihari, about the outstanding royalties. And Senator Mark spoke to a number. But inside of the minerals white paper document, it's a key statement where it says the current system of accounting and for production is deficient, and therefore the revenue stream from the exploitation of mineral resources is not being returned to the state, especially in relation to the computation and collection of royalties. So you've given us a number based on your best assessment of what is going on. But even within the draft minerals policy, it's suggesting here that there's not a good handle on what is being produced. So that I think someone earlier mentioned that mining in Trinidad and Tobago is a potential gold mine, and I tend to support that view. It's a gold mine, but the returns on that gold mine is going not to the citizens, but it's going elsewhere. So I have a question to the ministry on that, and that in terms of the ministry is the Ministry of Energy. I know certainly in oil and gas, issues of measurement and being very clear about what is being produced from a wasting asset is absolutely critical to make sure the state gets a share. We've not seemed to be able to do the job in terms of getting a similar level of confidence around the quarrying sector. So I'd like to understand what you're doing to try to fix that. And then I want to get from the TTITI representative, what is their assessment of the revenue impact of this? Because you've quoted some numbers for royalties, but do you have an assessment or a feel in terms of what that impact is? So I'll first address my question to the ministry in terms of what are you doing regarding the measurement and being able to have higher confidence about the amount of aggregate and other materials being produced?
Right. I'll ask Director Minerals to...
Certainly.
Thank you, Pierce. Chairman, that's a very good question, and it's something that we have actively been discussing at the Minerals Advisory Committee. Currently, the system, as it was basically an honor system where persons are required to, operators are required to...
Honor, could you explain an honor system for the members of the public?
Where they maintain books, records of their production, and those books are sent, production figures are sent to the ministry, where our internal staff would prepare statements of royalties due based on production times the production rate. The statements would be...
Can I stick up in who verifies that what is written in the book that is sent to the ministry?
Yes, I was getting to that.
Okay.
The statements are then audited by our internal audit unit, who would make spot checks to the quarries to verify that the records submitted correspond with the records on the books. We recognize that is not an ideal system, and there are many ways to cheat that system. We have been discussing at the Minerals Advisory Committee the use of technology, and currently there are several different types of technology available. The ideal system for us is to survey the quarries. Now, using conventional surveying, it takes a lot of time, a lot of manpower, a lot of resources to get those surveys done. We have been looking at the use of unmanned aircraft systems, also called drones. And we have been scoping the requirements for drones, and very soon we will be placing an ad in the newspapers requesting persons to submit, requesting quotations for the supply of drones, which would be able to capture that data for us, so we could use that data to compute the volumes removed, and then reconcile the books that were based on the honor system and say whether the operators have been reporting accurately or not. We should be able to get a much more accurate figure for production from the quarries, which ties back to the revenue due to the state.
Well, I am happy to hear that, because that is exactly where I was going, because this UAV technology on unmanned air vehicles to go in and a lot of other places that's used, because that allows for a highly accurate recording of the removal of spoil from various areas. And it would obviate the issue that we have, I understand, we have a personal safety issue. You have all sorts of issues with persons going out there to do that work. And then the personal interaction issue with people going, the same person going there, you have other issues that could come up. Having a aerial vehicle, be able to map it geospatially and be able to capture the data. The vehicle went today, it goes 30 days later, it can come pretty close to understanding what was removed. So I'm happy to hear that the ministry is moving in that direction, because that would make your job a lot easier. But more importantly, we're trying to understand the hemorrhage that the state is suffering now. particularly in this environment where the state is struggling to keep, the coffers, together. Any opportunity for us to increase the revenue from this important gold mine sector is very important. I want to just address Mr. Hart or Mr. Long, because I've noted several things about in terms of your comments on the quarry industry, and you've noted that the issues about royalty payment in particular are an issue. Could you help us understand your work that you're doing in this area? And then do you have any sense as to where we are in terms of the potential for royalty generation from the quarry sector?
Mr. Chairman, Sherwin Long will take the question.
Mr. Chairman, just to highlight the EITI process, what we would do is reconcile revenue paid by operating companies, whether oil, gas, or minerals. Our auditor, an independent auditor, would then audit those figures against what the ministries or other state agencies say they receive. Currently, we only have 5 mining companies that participate in the EITI process, including National Quarries, Lake Asphalt, TCL, Hermitage Limestone, as well as FW Hickson. Those are the only 5 operators that currently give us data. When we look at the larger picture through the lens of our auditor, what the auditor's seen is, if you have a universe of operators, the auditor would highlight what is simply due to the government in license fees, rehabilitation bonds, and performance bonds. What that figure was $141 million. So what was due to the state, basically, if you have all of the operators' license, would be $141 million in rehabilitation bond, as well as performance bonds and license fees. On the royalty side, if you look at the historic production, there's been a change in the royalty regime over the past 2 to 3 years. So there are higher rates of royalties. If you look at historical production, using all of the minerals, you would see that what would have been due under the old system would have been $133 million. Under the new royalty system, the state would basically be due $233 million. Again, this is if you capture the revenue from all of the operators' license, etc.
Well, you've helped me, because I'm trying to get a sense of what the universe could be for the state. And I think that this is valuable input in terms of what it could be. It may not be close, but at least you have some estimation that informs the work that this committee is doing, because National Quarries is a key player. It's a key player in this business. And so that, let me help you. If you're suggesting that the number is 200 million plus, but National Quarries is only paying, let's say, 40 million out of that, then perhaps we understand now the extent of illegal quarrying in the country. Yeah? So it's important for us to get a grasp and a hold on this. And that's what this committee is about. We're trying to get because it's gone away, and we're trying to bring it back in. Yeah, we're trying to bring it back in. And National Quarries is key to this, but they're only a part of it. So Mr. Long, I want to thank you for that, because we're running close on time. I want to give the floor. I have 2 more requests, one from Member Antoine, and, well, 3 additional requests. Member Antoine, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. National Quarries seem to have moved away a bit from their core competencies in dealing with the environment. And I saw in the past that they became involved in the production of agricultural products, and in terms of produce, and in terms of fishing, in terms of tilapia. My question is, you received $108,000 plus in terms of the sale of agricultural produce, and just $860 in terms of the sale of tilapia. What was the cost of production in terms of the agricultural produce and the fishing vis-a-vis the amount of money that you made?
I'd like to make it clear that National Quarries is a mining company, aggregate mining. The issues of what took place previously that may have meandered away from the role of this organization was addressed by the board. It has been addressed by the board in several ways. When we look at, what was the cost for, the bit of, meandering, if you will, that was not something that we were set up to do. I also want to state that in terms of the environment, National Quarries has been addressing the issue of the environment from the actual process of natural regrowth and all of that. I don't know that this board has spent any time on any of the issues that you raise. It is not even something that is a cost area for us because it does not exist as far as we are concerned any longer, because all of that meant that we were not doing what we were supposed to do. This is a mining company with a serious focus on mining, and that is what we're addressing. So I really don't have an answer for you with respect to that.
So National Quarries has returned to its core competencies.
Well, so when the board came, we read the Articles of Association and what this organization was supposed to address. And that is what we are doing as a board. Outside of that, I don't know of anything else but ensuring that we provide quality aggregate to Trinidad and Tobago and to be able to address the issues that the government of Trinidad and Tobago has established the company for. That's all we are concerned about.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be brief. My question goes back a bit on the illegal mining. With respect to the process, now I understand that a number of agencies like the EMA and so on would form part of this initiative to fight against the illegal mining. And I understand also that you would have some form of partnership or relationship or MOU with national security. I have seen where things fall through because of documentation. And for example, the police giving support to the EMA is different to the police initiating a process based on some form of submission. So I'm asking the question in terms of the process in tackling this illegal mining. Is it a support from the Ministry of National Security for enforcement of the agencies, or has a criminal fight been initiated?
Okay. Each of the arms have their specific roles, and if you read the MOU, you would recognize that when this thing was put together, it wasn't just a case of the organization sitting and saying, okay, we will do this. It was a case of defining the specific role of each particular arm of the state. Example, if you were to take the Commissioner of State Lands, their role was to determine whether, in fact, the lands that we say are, in fact, National Quarries lands, are, in fact, National Quarries lands, which really belong to the state. Similarly, the Defense Force, they do not have the power to arrest, as far as I'm aware. So that if you read through the document, you will see clearly stated each agency role and what they're supposed to do within the ambit of the law. Because one of the things about the organization right now is that we make sure that we are clinical in terms of following the law, following the Articles of Association, and ensuring that the role of the board is distinct from whatever else any other organization has to do along with the executive, so that there's no issue of somebody getting involved and doing what they're not supposed to do.
The reason why I'm asking that is because this has been a problem that has been plaguing us, I've seen us, the country, for some time. And I'm thinking attacking this in a different directions. So for example, one, making sure that the persons that abuse their freedom to do the illegal activity, it ceases, and there's some form of reprimand, right, based on the law. But also, for something like this to happen, there must be some form of learning, some mitigation plan or process to avoid persons from being able to say, you know what, let's go and feed off of this existing quarry because it's easy, you know. And I take the point where member Antoine would have said in terms of customers. Now, your response was the customer would procure based on quality, but then if an illegal courier brings good quality, then you have a competition. So some form of policy or some form of maybe a proposal for legislation where to sell product, you should have some form of documentation, and to get this, you have to pass through a certain process to ensure that the law is followed. I'm just saying, in terms of tackling illegal quarrying, right, besides the strong arm, right, of fighting existing ones now, there must be some form of plan to make it not to reduce the attraction from other entities to go against your marketing targets.
Noted.
All right. Thank you very much. I want to say that given the intense interest that this inquiry has generated, I think put in National Quarries and notice that the committee members will consider having to bring you back, because certainly I haven't even started to ask the question that I want to ask. And I have several requests. So in that vein, I'm asking the members who have remaining. I have two more members if you could keep your questions brief, so that we could keep it around 12:30 so we could wrap up.
Yeah.
So that I will now invite Senator Mark.
I agree completely, Mr. Chairman. I have several questions. But what I'm going to ask, Mr. Chairman, we can get it in writing. So I'm directing this at the Director of Minerals, and you can supply it in writing. As of today's date, or given your last audited arrangement, as you said, could you supply to this committee the total number of licensed operators in the mineral industry to date, the total amount of unlicensed operators to date, the total number of applications for licenses as new entrants in the industry, to the ministry, that is, and the total number of illegal, not unlicensed, illegal persons or organizations operating in Trinidad and Tobago today. I know you give us 8, but give us over a period.
Senator Mark, if you allow me to interject, and when you're providing the information ministry, we want the acreages. So not just the number, but the acreages in terms of the license and the unlicensed. I suppose the illegal might be a bit difficult, but certainly the license and the unlicensed, we would like to get the acreages also, and the locations.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. In addition to those questions, I wanted to ask, given that the TTEITI is a body that is sanctioned by the state, and we have the power to issue licenses as the state through the Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries, could we not, Mr. Lashley, consider having a provision or a clause that says if your license is being renewed, you must supply information to the TTEITI now I am shocked to hear only 5 mineral companies are supplying information, and there are hundreds or scores of operators in that industry. So I'm proposing for your consideration that included in future licenses is that provision, because we are issuing it, and that is a body that we have sanctioned, and therefore they must supply information. That's another one. The other one I would like to get some clarification on, and I don't know if you could put it in writing for us. What is the status of the National Minerals Policy? Is it floating? Have we implemented it? How far do we have to go in implementing it? That's one I would like to have in writing as well. And if you can tell us, according to your submission, on page 13 of your submission to Mr. Brian Caesar, National Quarries, on page 13, you talked about a pre-qualification system whereby suppliers and contractors doing business must go through a rigorous process of evaluation of technical and... Could you provide in writing to this committee the names of all of your suppliers and contractors who have met and satisfied the pre-qualification system? And is that pre-qualification system part of your new procurement policy that you have provided us? All right, cool. And finally, you talked about a new list of attorneys that you have on board. Could you provide us with the old list of attorneys as well as the new list of attorneys? You could put all those things in writing. I have about 30 more questions, but as the Honorable Chairman said, we have to hold because of time. But these are my initial salvo. Okay?
Thank you very much, Senator Mark. I appreciate the brevity of your your request. MP Karim, you have the opportunity to give the last couple of questions.
I will reserve some of my questions for the next time, but I will just give you a few of what I have in mind. The first question I want to ask is, given our interest in the success of the National Quarries as a state entity, and given the fact that you are now in terms of improving your whole remit, do you have a whistleblower policy? Second thing I want to ask is, with respect to the list of attorneys, do you have any litigation matters before your organization at this time? And will you be able to give us some information with respect to what are these matters? How long have they been attended to? And what are the implications and costs and so on? The third thing I want to ask about is your actual operations policy. Is it that, given the constraint of resources, you could have mined at greater depths into the Earth's surface to where I understand you might get even better quality, but that you are operating now not at that level, and therefore you're not getting the best quality for market? And I will have more questions for our colleagues from the Transparency Organization, but I just want to ask as well, if you want to answer. Given the fact that you have oversight for the mineral sector, are there any areas of concern that you would have noted as you are here present with the National Quarries that you might want to alert us to that might be useful for improvement towards their operational efficiencies and viability? Because you are getting data from National Quarries. And have you met with any resistance? Are there constraints? What are the concerns you have that you would have noted in your relationship with this state entity?
So far, Chair and Member, so far the National Quarries Company, they have embraced the ITI with open arms. They have actually sponsored some of our outreach workshops to other operators, and we're trying to bring more companies into the fold. We've also partnered with the company on a quarry rehabilitation project through the EU Environment Program to rehabilitate 80 hectares of abandoned quarry. In terms of the general recommendations our auditor finds around national quarries, it would be on updated financials, and that was the major sort of highlight that our auditor raised. The concerns that the auditor raised in terms of recommendations for the entire industry includes some of the matters we've discussed today, including independent verification of production, the need for more licensed operators, and for the licensing process to be either.
I wanted to ask you to focus in terms of your audited report, or your auditor's report. What is the general statement of measures you would like to see corrected, improved, or you noted, or an exceptions report? What did that say?
Member of Chair, for National Quarries specifically, again, the main quote-unquote red flag was the need for up-to-date financial statements.
Is it possible, through the Chairman, that you put those in writing, so at the next time we might be able to, given the time constraint, to examine further in terms of the improvement and the relationship, particularly in your context as oversight? If you oversighted that the financials audited statement is a concern, then you need to tell us what were the concerns, what aspect of it, and what did you recommend for improvement? So okay, maybe at the next occasion.
Sure. Okay. It's been a little while we've been here. It's Mr. Hart. Mr. Hart, I will allow you, Mr. Hart, 2 minutes because we were trying to wrap up. And I want to say the ITI has a specific rule, and the rule is not just really oversight. The rule has to do with accounting for what transpired. Yeah, so that and you don't necessarily look at companies, you look at the sector. Yeah. So I want us to be clear about that. But Mr. Hart, I'm giving you a couple of minutes.
Yeah. I think it's important, Chair and members, to appreciate that the EITI is about protecting the people's patrimony in terms of bringing transparency and accountability to the exploitation of the country's natural resources. So it is terribly important that legislators, as well as the man in the street, appreciates the importance of the EITI. I welcome Senator Mark's suggestion that maybe the ministry could impose a condition of licenses that mining companies, participate in the EITI as a condition of being granted a license. I see that we have suggested to even Petrotrin as a state enterprise that they should introduce something like that in terms of their lease things like the A&V situation we had previously. And finally, I want to say, to overcome the inadequacies of representation of companies in the EITI reporting system, and therefore to broaden the transparency and accountability in the extractive sectors, we have been advocating the introduction of an EITI bill to Parliament so that it could be debated and enacted. At the moment, Permanent Secretary Lashley has on his desk a draft bill that we have produced that he's considering for discussions with the minister and then on to Cabinet. So I hope that you will support that bill if and when it comes to the legislative floor.
Well, Mr. Hart, I want to put you on notice that the committee has already had some preliminary discussions, and we are in the broad consensus of the committee is that we may have to call in and have a session with the TTI in terms of all of these state entities under your purview, in terms so that we will be communicating with you further on that. You don't need, we will communicate with you and you'll be advised accordingly. The committee still has to make a final decision, but we've had a discussion on that today, and that is something that we're looking at.
We would welcome that opportunity, Chair.
Yes, good. So as we're about to wrap up this session, I want to invite closing comments from the Chairman of the National Quarries, followed by the Permanent Secretary, and then the head of the TITI team.
Thank you, Chairman. I want to thank the members for their very, very insightful comments with respect to the operations of National Quarries. I almost said Mr. Karam, Member Karam. I guess I understand where you're coming from, and I feel that we can probably have some discussions in terms, because certainly, you know, having had a particular role before, that you certainly have some ideas in terms of where we can go, and I really look forward to that. I want to thank the former retired member of the Defense Force for all of the assistance that I know he'll take behind the scenes so we could have certain things signed off. And also from Mr. Mark, you know, I love Mr. Mark's questions, and that he always helps to make us think, what else can we do to make sure that we do it right? And so on behalf of the National Quarries Company Limited, a company that is going places, looking to continue to be successful, and thanking the members for all that they have done for us, and certainly coming out from the Public Accounts Enterprises Committee and some of the questions put forward from Mr. Mark, we have been able to take, you know, significant steps, and we hope to continue to do so using this committee. Thank you so much, Chairman, for giving us this opportunity.
Thank you very much. Mr. Lashley.
Thank you, Chair, and members of the committee for another informative session. I think as we go forward with the growth and development of National Quarries, it's evident that there's a lot of potential in the company, not just for, as Chairman indicated, discharging its mandate to satisfy supply to the domestic market, but certainly looking further afield. The company certainly, in my view, has the potential for adding to the diversification thrust, where we have another state enterprise which can contribute positively to the national coffers and the development of the country. So thank you again for the session this morning, and I wait for the follow-up session, which of course will be as insightful as this one. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lashley, for your very positive reflections on the future. We like when the people who are the policy people have, you know, positive reflections on the future. Mr. Ha, just a quick closing remark.
Yes, I mentioned, Chair, about legislation. The difference that it would make is that currently the EITI is a voluntary initiative in Trinidad and Tobago, and if we had legislation, one of the clauses in the draft that Mr. Lashley is considering now is making it mandatory, so that across the board, all companies engaged in the extractive industries, oil, gas, and mining, will have to participate and become more transparent and more accountable. And secondly, a lot was said about capacity building for national quarries. We are looking at capacity building across the board in the mining sector, and we've been working over the last 5 years with the smaller quarrying companies for capacity building in terms of management of the organizations, in terms of accounting practices, and so on. So we are continuing that this year, and in that regard, we expect to have the cooperation of National Quarries, who have been assisting us as well, as we have reached out to the smaller mining companies.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hart. Once again, on behalf of the members of the committee, I want to thank the representatives of all the entities who've taken